Your Move, where we help you make better decisions and live with fewer regrets. I'm Andy Stanley, and I'll be your guide. And today we're talking about the stories we tell ourselves about ourselves, our narratives. Remember your high school narrative? My parents are such idiots. School's such a waste of time. And then you grew up and you realized my parents aren't idiots, and school was definitely not a waste of time. But as adults, we tell ourselves similar things. They don't care, it doesn't matter, it won't make any difference. Or how about this one? I don't do exercise, right? The problem with these narratives is that they become excuses and they set us up to become our own worst enemies. So let's stop with all the false narratives, and today I'll tell you how right here on Your Move. Isn't it strange? I don't know if you ever think about this, but because I have to talk all the time, I have to think of things people aren't thinking about so I can make you think about it. So I'll have something to talk about. That's kind of my life, basically. But isn't it strange how we talk to ourselves? Because we all do this, right? We have conversations with ourselves. It's like there's two of us in there, sometimes three. If you have four, I don't really want to meet you. But anyway, these conversations that we have with ourselves, eventually we get down to this really, really big question that we all wrestle with. And this question is why? And here's what we do. Something happens and we think, why did that happen? Then we go to work trying to figure out why it happened. And why did this happen? Why did that happen? Why did this happen rather than that? And this is what I thought would happen, but this happened. And you can't help it. This is so human nature. We have this extraordinary habit, this inclination to impose a reason on randomness. We impose a reason on it. Something happens that doesn't make sense, and our minds just go to work trying to make sense out of randomness. And what we do is we create a narrative. We create our own narrative to make sense of things, right? We create a narrative to make sense of things. In fact, the worse the incident and the more personal the incident, the harder you work and the harder I work to make sense out of that. Because what's undeniable, regardless of your worldview, what's undeniable is that we create and often abide by our self-imposed narratives, whether they are accurate or not, whether they reflect reality or not. And this can be a problem. This can be a problem. In fact, this can lead you, as you have already experienced in your life. This isn't going to be new. I'm just going to put words around something you've already experienced. This can lead you to become your own worst enemy. So today we are in part 2 of our series. If you were here last time, you already know this. How not to be your own worst enemy. Now,
And welcome to Counsel of the Day with Shanrae, and I am Shanrae. So tonight we are on week 3. This is week 3, part 1. This month I've been talking about bad habits, and under each week it's been a different subtopic. And I am a degree counselor. Again, this is week 3. I do Counsel of the Day with Shanrae, and I want to move this along. Let me add this. I'm looking at different screens, so I'm going to be looking up, down, and all around. But this is an open platform. You are so welcome to, if you want to share some testimonials or share some life experiences, you're welcome to do it. I will pause and give highlight to it. If you have any questions, I will pause and I will answer your questions. So again, let's go on and get started because this is only a 30-minute platform. So let me add this to the stream. Okay. All right. So I am a degree counselor. This is Counsel of the Day with Shanrae. I am Shanrae. And this week we're going to be talking about why is it so hard to change these bad habits. All right. So let's move this along. All right. Again, I am a degree counselor. I required my degrees from Ashford University. This is my bio. I'm not going to go into it because we don't have the time, but I did acquire a dual degree from Ashford University, one in counseling and the other one in organizational management. All right, let's open this up because I do want to read my website disclaimer very quickly and move this along. I want you to look at it and then, okay. So it says, please be aware that due to the nature of the technology that I'm using, there can be no assurance of confidentiality when using this online service. It should also be noted that due to changes in policies, that all replies are to be used as advisory and informational only and will not constitute an official determination. Information provided by myself, other counselors, and or counseling services are subject to the limitations of current and available material, but the final responsibility for successfully achieving a goal does rest with you, the individual. Information online is designed to be helpful. However, this information does change, and it changes frequently, and it is recommended that clients or yourself will consult another physician, another specialist, and another religious leader to aid you in your overall behavioral wellness. Again, welcome, welcome, welcome tonight to Counsel of the Day with Shanrae. I am Shanrae. This is week 3. Subtopic: why is it so hard to change bad habits? All right, I am a Christian counselor. Let me open this and then I'm going to close it back. But this has been the scripture for the month that I've been using. Philippians 4 and 13. Some of you may be very, very familiar with this. It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. This is the New King James Version that I'm reading it out of. Okay, now let's move this along. All right, I like to define this, again tonight and tomorrow night. I'll be talking about the subtopic of why is it so hard to change bad habits, right? All right, so let's go on and let's talk about some of these key points. And let me open this up and I'm going to close it for you. The key points that I'm talking about tonight, number 1 is why is it so hard to change bad habits? Number 2, the father of behaviorism. I do want to give highlight of the they call it the father of behaviorism, or the one who actually opened up and created the theory of behaviorism. We're going to be talking about behavioral psychology, neuroscience, self-help tools, what else is important, and then of course I will always leave you with a takeaway. All right, so let's move this along. Let's open up with our definitions. Let me open this a little bit. Okay. All right. So number 1, habit. I chose it says a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up. A habit, a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one thing or something that is hard to give up. Number 2, let's talk about the definition of change. Change is the act or instance of making or becoming different. Again, change is the act or instance of making or becoming different. All right, so let's move this on. All right, let's open this up. And it says, I want to again talk a little bit about the father of behaviorism. Okay, so the father of behaviorism is the psychologist John B. Watson. Psychologist John B. Watson started behavioral psychology by building off of the work of Russian psychologist Ivan Pavlov in what's known as the old thing of classical, not old, but classical conditioning. This is what behavioral science or behaviorism was built upon: classical conditioning. And Pavlov found that certain objects or events could trigger a person's response. For instance, a lot of times people react. The reaction that we give people is from a behavior that they've done a lot of times towards us. So a lot of people react from the response that you get from me is the reaction you get from me is from a lot of times you want to say something, a behavior that someone has done to me. Okay, so this is what John B. Watson, he opened up about and called it behaviorism, and he built this type of theory off of, again, psychologist Ivan Pavlov, and who also opened up about classic conditioning. All right, so let's move this along, because this 30 minutes, I'm moving quick because 30 minutes is going to be going and coming very quickly. Let's move this along. Why is it so hard to change bad habits? It says it's often challenging to change habits related to, you can say, eating, exercise, and jobs. And so this theory that I'm talking about tonight and tomorrow, because I have new days, guys, Sundays and Mondays. This was actually taught or brought to our knowledge by Dr. Abby Jaffe PhD. And so what Abby Jaffe was saying is that, let me keep this moving. They're saying that, and I want to open this up a little bit. Okay. What she was saying is that she's managed to turn around a lot of bad habits over the years, like reducing her fast food consumption, spending less time glued to television screens, and finding an exercise regimen that she actually likes to work for, that works for her life. But her healthy habit journey isn't anywhere near completion yet, is what she was saying. She says she's constantly looking for ways to optimize her energy and improve her life. And if she said, if you're reading this, or if you're talking about this, chances are that you too have a few habits that you would like to change. So why, in the process of adapting new habits, usually, why is it so difficult? Okay, and we're talking again tonight, tomorrow, about why is it so hard to change bad habits? Okay, because there is not a system in place to help us to get the job done, unless we've reached the problematic tipping point of developing an addiction or a diagnostic disorder. So even then, the symptoms that are in place just want to help. She just wants to help you stop these bad habits. And she wants to help give tools to help adopt these new healthier habits that you want to introduce into your life. So why does this happen? Dr. Addie is saying, and she's saying partially because as a society, we still hold on to false notions that people struggle with, such as addictions or mental health issues, which are somehow different than the rest of whatever what they call normal folks. But normal, whatever, what's normal is everybody having to deal with some form of habit or some form of addiction. Okay, so this is not only false, what Dr. Addie was saying, but it's also extremely dangerous, because it ends up exacerbating the shame and the stigma for those people who are struggling, I guess, with something a little bit more, a habit that's a little bit more life challenging, such as drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. Thus preventing them from seeking the help that they really do need. All right. So the good news, Dr. Addie is saying, and I'm looking. Oh, good evening, Queen Esther. How are you? Good to see you. Tonight we are talking about, I'm going to reiterate, we're talking about why is it so hard to break these bad habits. So Dr. Addie was saying the good news is that we know a lot about how to change people's behavior before things start to escalate to a problematic tipping point. But she's saying that she'll be sharing four different, and I'm going to be highlighting the four different approaches to changing bad habits. And these changes are scientifically proven tools that will help people adapt these new habits. So let's start with number one. All right, let me move this along. All right, and I'm gonna open this up. Let's start with number one: behavioral psychology. All right, number one says that when we think, feel, and act in a particular way over a period of time, they start to form, not only in our behavior, but in our memory systems too. So your mind starts to remember how to work on these bad habits. She said break. Hey, good evening, Sarah. Queen Esther said break. Okay, you're on your break. Okay, I understand. So Dr. Abby was saying that when we think, feel, and act in a particular way over a period of time, these habits they start forming not only in our behavior, but also in our memory, okay, systems. So these are different types of memory classifications, including semantic memory, which is your knowledge, episodic memory, which is remembering the events, and procedural memory, which is knowing how to do things, which is considered an implicit form of memory and therefore operating mostly below conscious awareness. It's this last memory type, which is again the like a procedural memory. It's that last memory type, procedural memory, that's most important in the formation of habits. So the procedural memory part, that's where the habits start to form. So over many decades of research, three primary types of learning emerged in in the behavioral psychology domain. All right, let me see if someone is saying something. She said, oh, Queen said no, she spelled it wrong. Okay. I'm sorry. Okay. She said, good. I'm glad to hear that you're doing good, Queen. All right. Let's first talk about classical conditioning. And now, again, the father of this theory, classical conditioning, is Ivan Pavlov, and he's from Russia. He he created this theory years and years ago, the late 1800s. All right. So, classical conditioning. Let's see if someone said, she said she spelt it wrong. I'm just like, classical conditioning, also known as the Pavlovian conditioning, is learning through association. And we know that old saying, um, that you show me your friends. You show me your friends and you show me who you are. Because a lot of times when you see people in the same group, a lot of times they do everything similar. They look alike, they dress alike, they act alike, they speak alike, they have the same type of habits, they walk alike, they talk, almost talk alike. So this is what classical conditioning, the Pavlovian conditioning, is talk about. Learning through your association. It was discovered by, again, Russian psychologist Ivan Pavlov, which he discovered an infamous study of dogs. His study was on dogs. And then it moved to human beings. In simple terms, classical conditioning refers to two stimuli which are linked together to produce a new learned response. Operant conditioning and observational learning. All right, so let's move this on. And I'm going to open this up. Classical conditioning. All right, we talked about that. Operant conditioning. Here we go. All right, so okay, operant conditioning refers to behavior that is shaped by either positive or negative reinforcements. It was developed by American psychologist B.F. Skinner, who studied the behavior of rats. Now, Ivan Pavlov studied dogs and then humans. So, B.F. Skinner, he started his research in rats and then over into human studies. All right. He found that he could encourage or discourage behaviors based on a reward or a punishment system. And we know every day you see this in everyday life on your job. If you exceed on your job, that your job will reward you in some type of way. I know on my job they give out gift cards a lot of the time, saying that we appreciate your efforts and what you're doing. And then of course, if there's something that's negative going on, then there's the point system. You get 3 points. After 2 points, you get a written letter. Notice that if you do something wrong one more time, you're going to be fired. After the third time, then you're fired. Okay, so that's that reward or punishment system type of living or learning. Now let's move to observational learning. Let me move this along so y'all can see this. Let me open that up. Observational. All right. All right. So Albert Bandura, which is another American psychologist, believed that people learn behaviors by observing and modeling other people's behavior. We know that to be true too. If you see a lot of times the way the parents act, a lot of times you see the children act the same exact way. Parents talk a certain way, you see the children talk a certain way. If a parent walks a certain way, a lot of times the children walk the same way as their parents. So again, that's that modeling, observing and modeling type of behavior, attitudes or emotions. So in particular, Dr. Bandura studied babies and young children and found out that they imitated the behavior of those people that were around them. This became the foundation of his social learning theory, in which he highlighted that any form of learning requires the individual's attention, the individual's retention, reproduction, and motivation to imitate that modeled behavior. Okay, so that's Dr. Albert Bandura. Now let's move on to number two. Let's talk about the neuroscience of why it is so hard to change bad behavior. Let's move this along because our time is running out. Let me open this. Neuroscience. Okay. Researchers from MIT have identified that if neurons fire at the start and end of a specific behavior, then it becomes a habit. So, which is again, we going back to that memory, the part of your memory. Okay, procedural. What is okay type of memory? All right. So neurons located in the habit formation region fire at the beginning of a new behavior, subside while the behavior is occurring or going on, and then fire again once the behavior is finished. So over time, patterns then begin to form both in behavior and in the brain. And this can make it extremely difficult to break a habit. Let me see if anyone is saying anything. Hey, Deborah, how are you? Hi, Charlotte. Good to see you. Okay, this is an open platform. If y'all want to share any life scenarios, I will pause and give highlight to it. If you want to ask a question, I will pause and I will answer that question. But this is an open platform. So glad to have you on tonight. All right, so now it says in the forebrain, and let me move this on because I know that. All right, in the forebrain, the basal ganglia is known to control voluntary movements, and it may also play a crucial role in habit forming as well, both good and bad. So, as well as emotional expressions. So, have y'all ever heard the expression of where it's written all over your face? This is it, the basal ganglia, where a person don't ever have to open up their mouth, but if they see something going on, they have a certain expression on their face, like you don't have to say nothing. Most people know what this means. Like you don't have to say really. You just look like, or if something is funny, you don't even have to laugh. You can sit there like, like, so that comes from the basal ganglia part of your brain. All right. And so this is what the MIT, the theorists from MIT have come up with this theory. All right. So this system is not just concerned with motor body movements, but it has a strong effect on the emotional part of the brain. Investigator and professor at MIT, Anne Graybiel, believes that at its core, the basal ganglia works to help people develop habits so that they can become automatic. So this frees up space in your brain and memory to take in all the other things that we encounter on a day-to-day basis. Automatic habits may include riding a bicycle, driving a car, brushing your teeth. However, it's the same region that helps people develop unwanted or unhealthy habits like eating disorders, anxiety, depressed moods, and also addictions. So, research in this field that focuses on the neurons in the basal ganglia may lead to new psychological and drug treatments, which is, oh, that's a plus. I'm glad to hear this, and mental health disorders and addiction. And I'm so grateful for this. I was actually just talking about this with someone a little bit earlier about it is so, if anyone has, you just every all of us have areas in our brain that needs to be strengthened. I my I have a weaker area when it comes to math and science. And but most people can't afford to get their brains rejumped, which that really, you can really have your brain rejumped, but it costs a lot of money to get your brain, all of the neurons and the synapses is working in your brain, all of it together. But medication is just that little jumps in the brain. If you take a pill, it'll help spark those neurons and stuff that you need, so you can get to where you want to be in life, and stuff like that. And I was just talking with somebody about, I'm just so grateful that they have medication or little pills that can help. Like I gave an example. My mom was diagnosed with cancer about 28 years ago, and she was given a terminal diagnosis, but my mother's a miracle. I would say she was a miracle. She was blessed to be able to live, to get help. They were able to get all of the cancer out. They removed the breast at the time, and she had to take tamoxifen for the last, and my mom passed almost 2 years ago. So for 25 years later, she took tamoxifen, which was only, it was a chemotherapy in a pill. And that is what helped preserve my mother's life for the next 25 years. Well, it's the same exact thing. I'm sorry. It's the same exact thing when it comes to medicine that will help spark the neurons and synapses in your brain. And I'm so grateful that they're coming out with more and more improved medications that will help us in areas that we want to be helped. Queen said that she was told that there is an imbalance, so it's a habit. Most things are habits, Queen. Most thing, but the thing is, sometimes it's harder. It's a little harder to break habits due to what's going on with the synapses in your brain, with the electronic, because we have electrical modes and stuff, nodes that's in our brain, like just electronic kind of, you know, it sparks the brain. And sometimes it may not fire or spark as well, maybe, and depending on what part of your brain, the back of it, the prefrontal cortex, the sides, the temporal. And so wherever it's not firing like it should, there's going to be a slight imbalance. So where there is a slight imbalance, it is harder to break certain habits or harder to break certain things because um like when your car, when the battery, when you need a jump on your battery. If the car winds up, and it's turning over a little bit, you can hear everything else working, but it just needs that spark. You need a jump to get the car working. It's the same thing here, Queen, same thing with that. So it's habits, but it's also an imbalance. The imbalance is you need a little more spark, a little more electricity happening in whatever part of the brain that needs that. So you have enough whatever you need to break that habit. So it's both. It's actually both. Because remember, habits also start with what we see, what we observe, what we watch. And then a lot of times we don't even realize that we're starting to do certain things. And that's because it starts with what we see or hear or what we're around. And then if it becomes a part of you, okay, some people, for the most part, we can retrain our brains not to do certain things. And then at some other times, we may need a little help. So whatever help that can help us stop whatever we need, or whatever we need to improve on. So it's both habit forming, and it's also needing a little bit, a spark there, a little bit of help, because of there is an imbalance. So that, I hope I answered your question. Queen said, wow, your show is priceless, keep letting God use. Oh, thank you, Queen, I appreciate you, thank you. So okay, so Doctor, where we're at. Okay, what else is important? I'm sorry. So where am I? I'll say research in this field that focuses on the neurons in the basal ganglia may lead to new psychological and drug treatments in mental health disorders and addiction. And again, I am elated about that. Oh my gosh. Elated. I wanted to pause here. I remember, and I've said this a long time ago. Two of my children were diagnosed with ADD, not ADHD. They don't have the hypertensity. They have ADD, the attention deficit disorder. And so when I found out about it, I remember calling my grandma. And I said, well, they were diagnosed with this, grandma. And I explained to her, I read her the paperwork, what was going on. And I said, so they have some medicine that will help them retain information, and it'll help everything go from their short-term memory to their long-term memory, which they can be able to, be able to learn a little bit easier. And I said, well, I don't know. Should I allow them? I don't know if I should allow them to give them the medication because they were so young. My grandmother told me, and she was in her 80s at the time. She said this is amazing to hear. She said when I was growing up, she said they didn't have help like this for certain people. And she said, and then they were labeled a certain way. They were labeled as if they could never learn. And she said the fact that now they have just a small pill that can help a person remember. She said, let them take the medicine so they can go on and they can function. She said they can function well. She said, don't be afraid of that. And this, my grandmother was in her 80s at the time when she said this. And it made me think about things a lot differently. And so we went ahead and our children turned out to be so successful and everything with everything. And it just made things a lot easier. So it's no different here. These new findings when it comes to just little small medication that will help us function better. I am elated about this. So let me move this on to self-help tools, and let me open this up. Self-help tools, because our 30 minutes are almost up. Let me move over. Self-help tools, here we go. The self-help industry claims to want to help you develop better habits. So before newer technologies, self-help mainly came in the form of physical books. But these days, you can access information from home through your ebooks, online courses, apps, and podcasts. So, what else is important? Let's move this along. What else is important here? Let me open this up. What else is important? Two factors that effectively help people achieve the behavior change they desire are incentives and accountability. Number one, incentives. That's that reward. And number two is accountability. Okay, and the reward, and then you have also, you know, uh, punishment. Okay, so accountability is not much of a punishment, though. All right, so the American Society of Training and Development, ASTD, have released data from their studies on accountability, and the results were very interesting. What did they find? And it says if you are held accountable to somebody else by committing to someone that you will achieve a goal, then your chance of success is up to 95%. Having an accountability partner. Having an accountability partner. Now, this has been studied on long term, and comes right back down to this. Having an accountability partner. Accountability is the most important factor in habit formation or habit changing. This means that the likelihood that you will reduce your alcohol or lose weight will go up if you share your goals with friends, family, or your community, either in person or online. So, though the above mentioned tools are proven to work, physicians and therapists typically don't employ them that often because they don't think that they are relevant to mental health issues and compulsive behaviors. So, when people become addicted or depressed, we just tell them that they should just stop without rerouting those bad habits. And we know you can't just stop doing a bad habit. Okay, that doesn't make sense. That's not logical. And then wonder why it does not work. Okay? So the question is why? So because we are bad at stopping ourselves from doing something, especially if it's already a habit. Most of us have habits, okay? Again, and last week I went over different forms of habits. Let me look and see. So while attending Dr. Addie said while she was attending a mental health conference, she was introduced to another woman in the industry, and she said that woman told her that we as medical and health professionals are not very good at getting people to stop anything. So instead, we are much better at getting them to do something else, is what she was saying. The key is to start your habit changing journey much earlier than the problematic tipping point. The tipping point is a world full of shame, stigma, and disappointment. Again, let me pause. Embarrassment and shame, that should never, ever, ever be a person's teacher. You should not have to learn everything by being embarrassed or by being shamed. And so this is what this doctor was sharing with Dr. Addie at the conference. Okay, that where change happens, when it happens because someone has been embarrassed or they've been shamed. And so what she was saying to Dr. Addie is we need to try to catch it before it gets to that point. Okay, being embarrassed or shamed. And so that makes normal coping and functioning look like a faraway land of make believe, on your or one that you will never ever attain. So if you can learn to control your habits long before they become addictions, okay, because everybody again has habits, good, bad, and different, but everybody does not have addictions. And those habits, certain habits, do not have to become an addiction. If we know, hey Cole, how you doing? Hi Cole. And again, we're gonna go back to that accountability partner or partners. If we can get with some accountability partners who are not going to sit there and go along with, give you a way out. You need the right type of accountability partner that will help you if there is a habit that needs to be changed, before it turns again into an addiction, before you get to the point to where you're always feeling shamed about it, or you always feeling embarrassed about this. Accountability partner is a great tool for anyone to learn how to counteract a bad habit. Let's move on. So if we can learn to control our habits long before they become addictions or disorders, however, we'll have a much better chance at not only surviving but thriving. So listen, let me look and see if anyone has anything that they want to share. Much better chance at not only surviving but thriving. So I'm sorry, I'm working so many different so many different tools here that I've accidentally hit the mute button, turned it off. Queen Esther said also we have to be careful to stop to habit and not cover up with something else. Yes, okay, that building on top of building on top of building on with these habits, you're right. But what happens with that again is not being honest, not truly not truly wanting to change that habit. um it's a cover up. When you're building a habit on top of a habit on top of a habit, that's basically it's just a cover up. You're trying to cover up something that you know is not very healthy, which then becomes a double unhealthy thing, triple unhealthy, quadruple, and then it just all becomes again like we were talking about tonight, an addiction. Addiction. So, Cole said, "Queen, yup, not switching addictions." Okay, I like that, Cole. He said switching addictions. And that's a whole different topic within itself. I know, for instance, let me give you an example. I know a lot of people who stopped smoking. So they quit smoking after years of smoking, and then they became but in the place of smoking, they started eating. So they stopped smoking, and then you gain 50 pounds because they switched, like Cole said, they switched one addiction to another. You went from smoking habitually to now eating habitually. So it's, you gave that one up, that smoking, but you picked up the excessive eating. So now you have to, which means that you're still not dealing with what the core issue is. And the main thing is having to find out what the core issue is, deal with it. I mean, come to terms with it, and then say, I have to find a way to totally retrain myself from doing this. I like that, Cole, how you said switching addictions. I like that. But I do know, and y'all know I am an optimist. I'm telling you, like the scripture that I'm using for this month, I can do all things through Christ, and I'm talking about all good things, not negative things. I can do all good things through Christ who strengthens me. Listen, we can overcome anything. We can overcome anything. Some things may take a little longer than others, but we can overcome anything as long as we have that, we stay dedicated. Because I don't even want to say motivated, because our motivation, we lose that here and there sometimes. You can lose your motivation, but that commitment and that dedication, you will get your reward in the end, in the end. So it's about being committed and dedicated. Cole says, okay. All right. So I wanted to leave y'all with a takeaway, and I'm going to open this up. And let me open this up because I wasn't moving this along while I was talking. I want to leave y'all with this takeaway. And the takeaway says, to change any behavior, we have to slow down and act intentionally rather than from habit and impulse. A person can internalize their expressible thoughts and employ such ideas to modify human behavior. If something's not giving you value, consider eliminating it from your life. Okay? So that's what I wanted to leave with you all tonight. To change any behavior, we have to slow down and act intentionally rather than from habit and impulse. And that's the main thing. Queen, to answer you again, the question again, slowing down and acting intentionally, because again, the root cause of everything that's going on, whether it's an imbalance or not, is still the root form is from habit forming. That's the root cause of everything. Forming a hazard. Now that habit again can be changed. Let me move this along. My time, I done ran over my time. I wanted to show the theory website where I got my teachings from tonight. All right, let's move this along. Okay, so excuse me. All right, so if there's a past Counsel of the Day with Shanrae series that you've missed or you just want to rewatch, you can go to my YouTube channel at Shanrae Price. Please like, share, subscribe, and then select any past series that you would like to watch. All right, and this is it. All right. I am a professional one-on-one counselor. So if you're interested in professional one-on-one counseling services, feel free to contact me via Facebook Messenger at Shanrae Cherie Price or via my email at shanraecherieprice@gmail.com. I'm a lifestyle strategist, and my aim is to aid you in your overall life goals and dreams and behavioral wellness. Thank you so much. Thank you for participating with Counsel of the Day with Shanrae. All right, and I will see y'all tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. These are my new days, Sundays and Mondays from 9 to 9:30 p.m. We ran over tonight, but thank y'all again. I will see y'all tomorrow night. Have a wonderful evening. Good night, everybody. Bye.